I appreciate the captive audience. Good evening. I'm Kevin Smith. I am your superintendent of schools, and I'm in my 6th year, and this is, I think, my 6th budget. So here we go. On behalf of all of our district leadership, I am privileged to present the fiscal year 21 proposed operating budget. And as always, a great deal of thought, time, and effort went into crafting this proposal you're about to see. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank our building principals and their teams who had a significant hand in putting together this proposal. I also want to name Jose Figueroa and Chris Burney, who lead our facilities management, our central administration, including Dr. Chuck Smith, Andrea Leonardi, Maria Coleman, Frank Compar, Eric Hawkinson, and Ann Lenz, who does double duty serving both the town and the school district as CFO. I also need to thank my assistant, Lucille DeNovio, who consistently goes above and beyond in her performance and who has made substantial contributions to this presentation. Lastly, we need to single out Marianne Salvato. Marianne is one of our unsung heroes in our central office. She manages our business department and also functions as our budget director. She herself has committed countless hours to reviewing and organizing all of the information from each of the respective cost centers. She is truly an expert here in Wilton, and we're fortunate to have her in our district. So a few more just preliminary comments before we get into it. We didn't start at the numbers you'll see. As is commonly the case, teams review and make requests based on what they identify as their needs. Those are compiled and compared to one another, compared to district priorities, compared to past history and budget performance, and weighed in light of all of the external economic factors that particularly the folks in this room so commonly discuss. Consequently, decisions are made about what must stay and what must be deferred or eliminated. This budget reflects a proposed appropriation and staffing request that we believe will enable us to successfully address our goals, advance our vision, and meet our obligations. And my last comment would be, I would offer that budget development is dynamic and conditions often shift over the course of a year. Priorities get reordered, new priorities emerge, and estimates like healthcare costs become knowns. All of this is simply to highlight that school district budget development is complex. Adding to that complexity this year is the fact that we've recently converted to an entirely new financial and human resources software system. This has necessitated that we reorganize our chart of accounts and reorganize various budget categories. While we've loaded a year of history into the system and expect to have a second year of history in the system by week's end, I want everyone to know that the budget book looks different and is organized differently. The benefits of converting to a new financial management system are many. We will eventually save significant man hours because reports are now produced by the system and not produced manually. Data can be sliced by location and aggregated up across locations, and we have the capacity to get granular in ways that required manual accounting in the past. This reduces the risk of error that results when reports have to be manually keyed. This is a process that's been underway now for at least 4 years. It was talked about the year I arrived, and it took many years to put in place, and we're finally in a place where we can celebrate the conversion. So to get into the budget presentation, I always like to start with a look at the future and external forces shaping some of the ways we live and the work we do. I have just a very brief 1-minute video that I think, if you're not yet familiar with it, will give you some pause.
What is 45,689 divided by 67?
Sure.
He silently asks the computer and then hears the answer through vibrations transmitted through his skull and into his inner ear.
6, 8, 1.9, 2, 5.
Exactly right.
One more. What's the largest city in Bulgaria, and what is the population?
The screen shows how long it takes the computer to read the words that he's saying to himself.
Sofia, 1.21 million.
That is correct. You just Googled that.
I did.
You could be an expert in any subject.
Mm-hmm.
You have the entire internet in your head.
That's the idea.
Ignore the state of my desktop. So, let's think about that last sentence for a moment. We have the technology to carry the entire internet in our heads. So what does that mean for public education? I think this is why we think about that. The mission of the Wilton Public Schools is to inspire and prepare all students to contribute meaningfully to a globally interdependent society, guided by expert instruction and a rigorous learner-centered curriculum. Our students actively pursue their goals and aspirations and grow to be productive, resourceful members of the community. That is our mission. We accomplish this by executing our theories of action and delivering on our strategic objectives. At a high level, we're looking to ensure our approach to teaching matches the demands of a 21st century, a century where we now have the internet in our heads. In terms of ensuring a strong programmatic foundation, we aim to ensure that all of our students feel safe and connected in our school environments, that our classrooms allow all learners across the entire spectrum to access a rigorous education, that our teachers are as best prepared and supported as possible, and that our achievement, academic and other, matches our aspirations. We've made a serious commitment to the development of 21st century skills. In addition to having broad knowledge, our students must be able to effectively inquire, engage, interpret, and communicate. In support of this, we've invested significantly in the development of our curriculum and resources through our library learning commons. In addition to traditional library media curriculum, including literature appreciation and research skill development, our students now engage in transdisciplinary learning, design thinking, coding, and collaborative problem solving around real-world issues. In preparation for this budget, we developed and our board approved a series of goals and assumptions. The goals are organized around targeting investments, including investments in the Genesis Alternative School program and investment in updating the Middlebrook facility. We established goals around adhering to class size guidelines and supporting our digital learning plan. With respect to assumptions, we assume, and these costs are reflected in the budget proposal, that we'll honor our contracted increases in salary and transportation and will budget for other increases such as medical and liability insurance and OPEB. As part of those assumptions, we're also forecasting a K-12 enrollment decline of approximately 54 students. Other budget priorities include several new courses aligned with our mission and vision, including American Sign Language, Advanced Media Production, and UConn, ECE, and German Advanced Spanish Conversation, just to name a couple. We continue ongoing work around strengthening our mathematics program and supporting our comprehensive literacy program. So with those priorities in mind, the proposed appropriation for fiscal year 21 is $83,989,144, which represents a $2,112,581 or 2.5% increase over current year spending. The distribution of those budget dollars remains relatively unchanged year over year. Salaries and benefits and insurance represent approximately 80% of the request. Contracted services, which include legal and bank fees, Medicaid, transportation, and technology leases, account for 10.89%. Property services, including carting, remodeling, and major repairs, equipment, and other repairs, represents about 1.6% of the budget. Other purchase services includes part of the transportation cost, tuition, recruitment activities, and training and conferences, accounts for 3.77%, and supplies and digital resources make up the remaining 2.42%. Within those lines are included textbooks, general supplies, digital resources, cleaning and maintenance supplies. It's important to highlight that one of the key drivers in this budget is the allocation for our Genesis Alternative School program. In this current year, Genesis was funded outside of our school budget through an appropriation from the Board of Finance through the Charter Authority. When comparing total dollars allocated to the school system, if we add the Genesis appropriation to the operating budget and then compare it to the proposed budget, we see an increase of 1.99%. Makes sense? 2.58 budget to budget with the Charter Authority appropriation compared to proposed budget is 1.99. So just briefly, another way that our budget's allocated, just want to underscore the majority of our spending is tied to the personnel we deploy in service to educating our students. We are a human service industry, and our budget very clearly reflects that. So some notes about enrollment. We're projecting a total district enrollment of 3,860 students. Of those, 3,760 will be in our classrooms K-12. We are projecting approximately 70 students for our preschool, 10 for our community steps, 18 to 21 transition program, and we're projecting 20 outplaced students. Enrollment projections for the next 7 years do suggest a continued decline. K-12, the slide you're looking at forecasts K-12 enrollment and excludes numbers for pre-K, community steps, and outplaced students. But what we're looking at through 2027 is a decline of approximately 9.7%. There's another trend within our enrollment pattern that we continue to watch, and what we see is some growth annually when our students begin in kindergarten. So if you read down the lines diagonally, should restart that. So the point of this slide is simply this. We're projecting some lower cohorts starting in kindergarten, but we add students as they move through 8th grade. And then what we see as part of the pattern is we start to see tapering again as students move through high school. So that's a trend that we continue to watch. Relative to enrollment, we also monitor class size very closely. We are projecting stable class sizes year over year across the entire district, beginning here in K2 with class sizes ranging from 19 to 21 or so in grade 2. At Cider Mill, we're looking at class sizes ranging again from 20 to 22. At Middlebrook, the range will be 18 to 22, and at the high school, we're expecting, at least in the core classes, a range from 19 to 20 to 21, 22. Our special program enrollment includes pre-K, as I mentioned just a moment ago, with a forecast of 70. I would remind listeners that students age into pre-K when they turn 3. So we often start with a lower enrollment in the fall and then add to enrollment as the year unfolds as students turn 3. Historically, we end up with somewhere near 80 students enrolled by the end of June. For community steps, we're projecting 10 students and then 20 for Genesis. In terms of total staffing, across the district, we are anticipating a net decline of 0.95 FTE, so just about a 1 employee decline. We are also redistributing staff and proposing to add certified special educators while decreasing non-certified staff. In terms of our targeted staffing focus for next year, we're really looking at the area of special education. We're proposing adding certified staff to respond to the increasing prevalence rate, manage special education caseloads, and provide more targeted instruction aimed at narrowing the achievement gap between general education students and special education students. You'll also note at the bottom of the slide, because of the enrollment decline, we are forecasting closing 2 general ed classrooms at Cider Mill, 1 3rd grade and 1 5th grade. That won't impact overall class size, however. This is a terrible visual, but does offer a total FTE over the last 3 years. We do continue to trend downward in our staffing, though it's not at the same pace as the enrollment decline. The difference is because we've elected to reinvest staffing over the last several years into various programs that support our goals and priorities around improving achievement, developing 21st century skills, and narrowing the achievement gap. Staffing investments include our library learning commons and special education services. A final note on FTE, we have decreased a total of 16.41 FTE since 2015. One of the major funding priorities this year is what we're calling phase 1 of our Middlebrook School Improvement Plan. Like we did at Cider Mill last year, our plan is to begin in the Sherilyn Peterson wing of Middlebrook and replace all of the flooring with VCT tile, update the lighting, replace the ceiling tiles, and paint. We also plan to renovate the bathrooms that are just down the hall here, and then replace a couple of unit ventilators that heat vestibules in 2 of our entryways. The total cost of phase 1 of this project is $530,000, and you'll see that really stands out when you look at the total facilities budget. A second major priority, as I mentioned also a minute ago, is funding the Genesis Alternative School Program. As I noted earlier, funding for this program in the current year was provided outside of our budget through the Charter Authority. The program's purpose is to provide an educational opportunity for those students who, for a variety of reasons, are unable to be successful in our mainstream programs. In the absence of the program, we have been sending students to costly outplacements. This year, we started with 4 staff and 7 students. In just a few short months, the student population in Genesis has increased to 16, and it's very possible we can enroll 20 before the year ends. This program is a win in many, many respects. First, it allows us to provide a high-quality education to our students and keep them in the community. Next, it's a very cost-effective solution relative to outplacement. It provides us another program on our continuum of services, and I would say of the current students enrolled, 2 have returned from outplacement. That represents actual budget savings, and we approximate that 5 others have avoided likely outplacement. So while that doesn't represent savings, it does represent potential cost avoidance. The proposed operating cost for next year for this program is $598,000. The difference is primarily year over year, in large part due to salary increases and then transportation. We do work diligently to find ways to contain costs. Programs like Community Steps and Genesis represent some of our most recent and most successful efforts to do that, and we can see evidence of that in our current budget proposal. I'll give you 2 examples. Our out-of-district tuition line continues to come down, as does our out-of-district transportation. For this budget, we're forecasting a reduction of about $300,000 in the out-of-district tuition and an additional net savings in transportation of about $53,000. Although the out-of-district transportation has gone down, we do see an increase in in-district transportation because we're keeping kids in town and transporting them to Genesis. But that's very, very good news and early evidence of the commitment that was made around Genesis. I would also add, just as an anecdote, while the students are engaged in, I think, very high-quality academic work, we don't yet have in front of us academic achievement data, although I know when we see it, it'll be very good. What we do have is attendance data. And what we've seen from the very start is our Genesis kids have upwards of a 90% attendance rate. And these are students who had a lot of difficulty coming to school. So we've taken students who couldn't get out of bed, couldn't come to school, had a lot of difficulty to providing a program where they now come virtually every single day. And so that in and of itself is a win. So on to just a few more details about our budget. As I mentioned a couple of times, our primary expenditures are in salaries and insurance and benefits. Here, what we're showing a year-over-year increase in salaries of about $645,000, a year-over-year increase in insurance and benefits of about $300,000. In utilities, we are forecasting a slight increase. I think that's actually in our telephone costs. But we received some good news. We received some good news earlier today with respect to the virtual net metering program that Wilton is engaged in with the town of Weston. Chris Burney, our facilities director, was sharing that that program is scheduled to come online at some point this week, and he's forecasting in the first year a savings of about $100,000 as a result of the diversion to solar energy. So that's also very good news. With respect to our transportation line, we're showing an increase of about $183,000. In terms of property and maintenance improvements, the primary driver of that add is the phase 1 of the Middlebrook improvement. The remainder of those dollars are dedicated to facility maintenance projects across the district, as well as a fair number of service contracts that we use to support our equipment up on the rooftop, as well as some of our security systems, and the list goes on. Instructional supplies and digital resources is also showing a fairly substantial increase, and this includes investments in new digital resources, as well as reflected as annual cost increases of some of those resources. Folded into this number are all of the supplies for art, music, and athletics. Our athletics budget, the supplies in particular, showed a substantial increase year over year. And then one of the other areas of significant investment is just our technology program. And so this is a sizable number. This number includes our technology lease, which we use to fund our Chromebooks, replace smart boards, upgrade all of our services. And then this also funds our contract with Novus. Novus is the company that we work with who provides all of our back-end IT support. So as a result of our investments, we improve achievement, we improve opportunities, and we continuously improve as a district. In terms of some outcomes, our graduation rate is just about 99%. Our college enrollment rate is 93%. Our college persistence rate from freshman to sophomore year is also 99%. And our college graduation rate is 84%, which is well above the national average of 60%. I was able to cull some data on some of our recent classes, which you can see on the screen behind me. The class of 2012, 85.7% of them have graduated, another 4.7 are still enrolled. The class of 2013, 83.6, while 5.6% are still enrolled. The class of 2014, 81.5% have graduated, 9% are still enrolled. In the class of 2015, 63.2% have graduated, 29.3 are still enrolled. I think this 84% grad rate in 6 years is an important number, and that's one that we continue to monitor very closely. Beyond the college outcomes, in terms of our academic achievement, our students continue to perform at very high levels. In 2019, 89% of our AP test takers scored a 3 or better, making them eligible for college credit. Similarly, our students perform very strongly on the ACT. The last 2 years represented 5-year highs for the composite scores at 27.1. When we look at our other academic measures, including the Smarter Balanced or the measure of academic progress, which is our district benchmark, we see very encouraging news all across the district in ELA. We have bemoaned some of our math scores in recent years, but when we look at the trends, we see that the trends are very promising, and we are seeing annually some new high scores when we get that data. In addition to our academic achievement, our students also perform very, very well on the stage and on the athletic field and in the studio. Our musicians annually come home with first place accolades, whether it's from Music in the Park or the other adjudication competitions they perform in. In 2019, Wilton was recognized again as a best community for music education, and we have a very long list of individual student accomplishments. In terms of athletics, our teams also do very, very well. This year, our gymnastics team was the Class M champion, I think, for the 3rd year running. Our boys ski team was also the Class S champion, I think, for the 2nd year running. Our boys lacrosse team was the FCAC and CIAC runner-up, as well as recognized as the Fairfield County Team of the Year. Our girls tennis was the FCAC runner-up. Girls swim team, also a runner-up, and the boys soccer team this fall was the Class L runner-up. Some other highlights: we routinely get ranked very high compared to our neighbors and around the state. We have all kinds of niche programs, including our television production program, which earns annually all kinds of accolades. The list goes on and on. As part of this process, we also keep an eye on spending compared to our neighbors. So what you're looking at is this year's proposed budget increases from our surrounding towns. So for the first year in several, New Canaan came in with a lower proposed budget than we did at 1.47. But Darien, Ridgefield, Weston, and Westport all started at much higher levels than we have. We also track comparative per pupil expenditures, and the story here is for years, we've only trailed really Ridgefield in terms of our annual per pupil spending, and that's a story that's been in place for some time and continues to remain in place. And same if you take a 4-year look, there was only 1 year where Darien had, I think there was a $20 difference between our per pupil and Darien's in 2015-16. And then we also track the overall percent increase in per pupil expenditures. And so if you look over the last several years, Wilton is far and away the lowest in terms of the overall percent increase. And so that's the budget in a nutshell. This information, this presentation will be online. The budget book with all of the details will be on our website. It's been, I think we delivered it, Jeff, last night to you and to the Board of Finance, so you have those to start combing through. In terms of the next sessions coming up, we'll have a Board of Ed special meeting on January 30th, where the board will continue to deliberate the budget. They just spent 3 days working with our administrators and workshops, going through each cost center. We have a joint Board of Education and Board of Finance meeting scheduled for February 6th, and then our Board of Education is scheduled to vote on the budget on February 20th, and then the Board of Finance hearing is scheduled. March 30 is the correct date? March 30th? That Monday night, great. Yeah, and so you do Board of Ed and then Board of Finance. As always, we'll take questions through our email. You can email me directly at superintendent@wiltonps.org or the Board of Education at boe@wiltonps.org. And on that note, I want to thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. We appreciate your engagement in this budget process. We'd like you to talk about it with your friends and neighbors and send questions to our Board of Education and Board of Finance members as they engage more deeply in their deliberations. Thank you.